हाय गाइस, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू ग्रेडअप। नमस्कार, आप सबका एक बार फिर से मैं ग्रेडअप में स्वागत करता हूं। मेरा नाम है हर्षमीत सिंह और हम लेकर आ गए हैं एक और वीडियो इन दिस ऑनगोइंग सीरीज ऑफ इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स. As you know, from Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m. on YouTube, we have a small session in which we discuss important topics from your UPSC preparation. पिछले 2 दिन ये क्लास नहीं हुई थी. ऑन मंडे एंड ट्यूसडे हम लोग यहाँ पे नहीं थे क्योंकि हम लोग का कोई और क्लास चल रहा था. बट अब फिर से मंडे टू फ्राइडे हम आ गए हैं वापस इस सेशन को लेकर के. द टॉपिक दैट वी हैव टुडे, आज हम बात करने वाले हैं जुडिशियल एक्टिविज्म के ऊपर. वी हैव टेकन दिस टॉपिक फ्रॉम इंडियन पॉलिटी से हम लोगों ने टॉपिक लिया है. दिस इज अ टॉपिक दैट यू यूजुअली सी इन द जुडिशरी में हम लोगों ने टॉपिक लिया है. इस बारे में हम लोग आज बात करने वाले हैं. हेलो मनीष, गुड टू सी यू मैन. आपकी तबीयत ठीक है? अब एक दो क्लास में आए नहीं पहले यार. आई होप ऑल इज गुड विद यू. Good evening to all of you, those who have joined in. If you have joined the session, do make sure you like the session. Do make sure you subscribe to the IAS channel of Gradeup and make sure that you comment if you want to ask anything. So basically, judicial activism है क्या? As you know, in India, we have different parts of the government. लेजिस्लेटिव पार्ट है, एग्जीक्यूटिव पार्ट है और जुडिशियल पार्ट है. लेजिस्लेटिव पार्ट का मतलब है पार्लियामेंट. एग्जीक्यूटिव पार्ट का मतलब है द गवर्नमेंट, मीनिंग दैट द मिनिस्टर्स एटसेट्रा. एंड जुडिशियल आर्म एकदम अलग है. ऑल दीज थ्री हैव सेपरेट वर्किंग. तीनों का अलग अलग काम करने का तरीका है विदाउट इंटरफेयरिंग इन वन अनदर. However, in the past, we have seen कि जो जुडिशरी है, the Supreme Court especially, has been trying to interfere in the working of the legislative and the executive. जुडिशरी हम लोग के सुप्रीम कोर्ट फॉर एग्जाम्पल टाइम एंड टाइम अगेन कुछ ऐसे ऑर्डर्स देते हैं विच आर इन द फॉर्म ऑफ अ लॉ. जबकि लॉ बनाना इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट जॉब. लॉ पार्लियामेंट को बनाना है, लॉ एग्जीक्यूट करना है एग्जीक्यूटिव को. But still, judiciary is the one who gives orders many times. Judiciary कहती है because parliament is not doing their job properly, तो हमें करना पड़ेगा. For example, when the movie theaters were open in the past few months, हम लोग का लॉ हो गया था that before a movie starts, national anthem will be played. So ये judiciary का order था. Allahabad High Court had given the order that all the government servants in UP will send their children to government schools only. ये भी गवर्नमेंट का नहीं, ये भी जज का एक कोर्ट का ऑर्डर था. सो जुडिशियल एक्टिविज्म मीन्स व्हेन जुडिशरी गोज बियॉन्ड इट्स ड्यूटी, अपनी ड्यूटी से आगे बढ़ करके व्हाट दे स्टार्ट डूइंग इज दे स्टार्ट प्लेइंग द रोल ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव एंड दे स्टार्ट प्लेइंग द रोल ऑफ द एग्जीक्यूटिव. सो रादर देन जुडिशरी अपना काम करे, जुडिशरी जब और लोगों का या और पार्ट्स ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट का काम करना शुरू हो जाती है, that is called as judicial activism. उसको judicial activism कहा जाता है, right? So judicial activism basically means when the judiciary goes beyond its duty and the judiciary starts doing the work of other parts of the government. Now this is called judicial activism. अब judicial activism again, judiciary does it because judiciary thinks that we are doing it for the betterment of the country. जब वो अपनी तरीके से लॉ बनाना शुरू हो जाते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यू वुड हैव सीन दैट इन द गोलकनाथ केस, केशवानंदा भारती केस, देयर आर सो मेनी केसेस, विशाखा गाइडलाइंस केस, देयर आर सो मेनी केसेस इन विच द सुप्रीम कोर्ट गोज बियॉन्ड इटसेल्फ एंड स्टार्ट्स मेकिंग लॉज. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, द 3 जजेस केसेस. द 3 जजेस केसेस क्या है? In the 3 judges cases, the Supreme Court came up with the system of collegium for the appointment of judges. सो कलीजियम का सिस्टम लेकर के आना कि ऐसे जज अपॉइंट होंगे, वी विल डिसाइड हाउ द जजेस विल बी अपॉइंटेड. ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर नॉट रिटन इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में नहीं लिखा है, बट द कोर्ट इटसेल्फ केम अप दैट वी विल टेल यू हाउ दिस थिंग विल वर्क. दिस इज जुडिशियल एक्टिविज्म, where the judges use their power to go beyond their responsibility and start acting on behalf of parliament or on behalf of executive. Hello Amit, good evening. This is what judicial activism is. Now, Article 13 of the Constitution, which talks about judicial review, this is what basically gives the power. Article 13 says that the higher judiciary, Supreme Court, can hear a matter or can strike down a law if it is against fundamental rights. कोई भी ऐसा लॉ पार्लियामेंट या स्टेट का बनाया हुआ जो फंडामेंटल राइट से अगेंस्ट होगा, जुडिशरी उसको हटा सकती है. Judiciary many times has used this power. In 1967 गोलकनाथ केस में सुप्रीम कोर्ट said that fundamental rights cannot be amended. Fundamental rights को amend नहीं कर सकते. Then in Keshwanda Bharti case, they themselves came out with the idea of basic structure, although it is not written in any law. SP Gupta case, which is called the first judges case, यहाँ पे भी Supreme Court came up with the new idea that PIL would be introduced. So there are so many examples of laws and orders that the court gave in the past, although they are not written in the constitution. ना तो वो constitution में कहीं है, ना तो उनके बारे में कोई लॉ पास हुआ है, बट स्टिल दीज लॉज आर existing in India just because the judiciary has given these laws. PIL का पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट, द पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन, जो पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट है, ये कहीं नहीं लिखा है. देयर इज नो लॉ अबाउट इट. इट इज ऑल द सुप्रीम कोर्ट डूइंग. The two judges of the Supreme Court, that is Justice P.N. Bhagwati and Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer, they were the ones who started this concept कि अब हम लोग PIL भी accept करेंगे. What is PIL? PIL basically means public interest litigation, in which you can file a case in the court even if you are not related to the case. उससे पहले usually the court only used to work on the concept of locus standi. Locus standi means only if you are connected to the case, only then you can file the case. This is called locus standi. But the Supreme Court started accepting PIL also. PIL means अगर मेरा कोई केस से लेना देना नहीं है फिर भी मैं केस कर सकता हूँ. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई कम टू नो, मुझे पता चले कि देर आर सम पीपल इन द जेल हु आर नॉट ट्रीटेड वेल, जिनको पुलिस अच्छे से ट्रीट नहीं कर रही है, मेरा कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है उनसे, आई एम नॉट कनेक्टेड टू देम. But still, if I want, I can file a case in the court saying that by judiciary is not treating them well, they should be treating them well. So I can do that. So this is what PIL is. Even if I'm not connected to the case, I can file a case. PIL is an invention of the Supreme Court only. So this also is judicial activism and nothing else. Recently भी बहुत सारे cases हुए हैं judicial activism के. For example, as I said in the beginning, सुप्रीम कोर्ट मेड इट मैंडेटरी कि मूवी हॉल्स में मूवी चलने से पहले नेशनल एंथम चलेगा. दैट इज देयर ओन इन्वेंशन. देन सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेड कि भाई फायर क्रैकर्स नहीं होंगे, वी विल नॉट अलाउ दैट. देन सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑल्सो सेड कि भाई SC/ST एक्ट को ठीक नहीं चलना पड़ेगा. ऑल दीज थिंग्स दैट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज डन, नॉट जस्ट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट, इन फैक्ट अदर बॉडीज ऑल्सो लाइक द नेशनल ग्रीन ट्रिब्यूनल. जो नेशनल ग्रीन ट्रिब्यूनल है, दैट ऑल्सो has given an order. For example, diesel cars पूरी इंडिया में 15 साल तक चलती है, but in Delhi diesel cars can only run for 10 years. No, Manish, PIL can only be filed against a public authority only, not a private property. So NGT has also given this order, for example, that diesel cars in Delhi can only have a life of 10 years and not 15 years. So all these are examples of how judicial activism is working. In Tamil Nadu, a judge made it mandatory for every student to study every student in Tamil Nadu basically that they have to speak Tamil. Apart from this, they also said that every student would have to study Tirukal. Right to privacy, again an example of how the judges have in the past taken over the role of taken over the role of parliament, taken over the role of executive, and said that we will now decide how the country will run. This is called judicial activism. Now the problem with judicial activism is India works on the concept of separation of powers. अगर judiciary parliament का काम करेगा तो parliament क्या करेगा, right? If the judiciary is working on behalf of the parliament, what will the parliament do? What will the executive do? That is why we have a problem with the judicial activism. Now, judicial activism हुआ क्यों? What does the judiciary say कि भाई वो क्यों अपने आप से law देते हैं? Judiciary says because the parliament has failed. The number one reason why judiciary says that we have to make laws is because the parliament does not do its work, because the executive also does not do its work. Judiciary said that triple talaq was existing, it should have been removed much earlier, but they did not, so हमने हटा दिया. For example, the Vishaka guidelines, in which the Supreme Court in 1997 gave guidelines about sexual harassment at workplace, सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेड कि हमने पार्लियामेंट को टाइम दिया था, पार्लियामेंट नेवर मेड एनी लॉ अबाउट सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट एट वर्क प्लेस. अगर पार्लियामेंट खुद बना देता है, पार्लियामेंट देमसेल्फ वुड हैव मेड अ लॉ अबाउट सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट एट वर्क प्लेस एंड हाउ टू फाइट, हम कुछ ना बोलते. But because Parliament did not do it, so we had to come across with an idea. So Supreme Court says it is because there is a vacuum in the country. It is because the Parliament and the executive is not doing its job. That is why we have to come up and do our job. Also, it is a system of checks and balances. The government cannot be given unlimited power to work in whatever way that they want. At times, the government gives a lot of decisions which the court has to stop. So, court says that in order to have a system of checks and balances, in order to make sure there is complete justice in the society, we use this power. There is also a demand of human rights in India. There has been a lot of human rights violation from the government and from the public authorities. To stop that from happening, also the court has to take up these powers in the hand and make sure that they give decisions which are for the betterment of the people. Now, it is very obvious that judicial activism has very negative points as well. The first and the biggest negative point is that it is entirely against the concept of separation of power. One of the basic features or basic structures of Indian Constitution talks about separation of power. Separation of power between the executive, judiciary and the legislative. The problem is when the judiciary starts to work on behalf of executive, when the judiciary starts to work on behalf of the legislative, we have a problem. Because अगर judiciary सब कुछ करने लगेगी, then that balance will go away. The balance that we have, the balance of executive, judiciary, legislative, this balance goes away. So this balance has to be maintained, number one. The second problem that we have is judge, while giving such an order, might have their own personal views. If they give orders from their own personal views, that can never be a good order. The other problem is once the judge gives a judgment, it becomes a standard for all the other cases. Whatever the judge says, it basically becomes a precedent कि अब से ऐसा ही होगा. Now the problem is once the judge gives such an order, it becomes a precedent. Many cases in the future are then decided like that only. So it impacts a lot of cases and not just one single case. That is why again it is a problem. Once the judge uses his or her powers, it allows the other judges also to do the same कि हम भी यही करेंगे. The judicial activism restricts the power of parliament, the legislature. That is why they need to be stopped. Secondly, there are so many cases pending in the court that the judges are not listening to those cases. If the judges really want to do something good for the country, they should rather first focus on the cases that are already pending in the court, right? ऐसा तो नहीं है कि उनके केस खत्म हो गए, खाली बैठे हैं, तो क्या करें, गवर्नमेंट का काम कर लेते हैं, right? Because they themselves have about 3.8 crore cases are pending in India in the courts, because they themselves have so many cases pending. It's better that they first follow that, जो उनकी पहले duty है वो करें, and then they can do whatever else that they wanted. This is it about judicial review. Thank you so much for coming to the class. Reminding you, the Gradeup IAS subscription is open. If you want to prepare for the Gradeup IAS, for the IAS examination, make sure you join the Gradeup Super subscription for the 2022-23 foundation course, revision courses, NCRTs and much more. You can take the subscription for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months or 24 months, whichever plan suits you better depending upon your examination preparation. Once you take the Gradeup Super subscription, you will get access to all the running and upcoming courses, structured study plans, expert faculties, best study material, mock tests, quizzes and lot more. There are faculties for each and every subject who are experts in their respective fields. This is me, Harshmeet Singh. I teach polity and governance. We have Basu sir, Kovar sir, Abhishek sir. Most of them have been in this field for many years and have been taking a lot of classes, teaching lots of students. We are also on Telegram. Download the Telegram app, search for Gradeup IAS preparation and take advantage of study material and short notes. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you tomorrow, same time at 7:30 p.m. here. Bye, guys. Take care of yourself.